Well, I want to welcome everybody to today's EntreprenHer show. My name is Heidi Richards Mooney. I am the founder of Women in E-Commerce, publisher of We Magazine for Women, and today's host. I am delighted to interview our next guest and share her with all of our fans and friends and followers. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Carol Ann DeSimine. DeSimine.
Yeah.
And let me give you a little bit of her background. Branding is essential to any business. Carol Ann DeSimine works with coaches, speakers, and other entrepreneurs to help them position themselves in the marketplace by developing a personal brand that shines a light on what sets them apart from their competition. Carol Ann created the Sizzle system of personal branding, a 6-step plan that guides entrepreneurs through the process of creating a brand that gets them seen, gets them heard, and gets them clients. Very important. So today, she's going to talk about that system and much more. Welcome, Carol Ann.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited. I love when I meet women online and we just kind of click, and I'm stalking lots of great women on the net anyway. And when I see a woman that I've just been really interested in what they have to say, I say, oh, she's got to be on our show. So you are no exception, and I thank you for graciously accepting our offer to interview you, or our invitation. So let's start with your background. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a personal branding expert.
Whoa. My background is quite extensive in that I've done a lot over the years. And as far as branding, becoming a personal branding expert, I have a master's degree in public relations, which I used it a lot, but I wasn't a public relations person per se. I mean, there's so many things under that umbrella. When I started my business 10 years ago, it was a creative services agency called Big Eye Media. And I wanted it to be a public relations type agency, but what happened was I was getting hired to do graphic design and photography mostly, and copywriting. So I really did the whole package for people, and marketing and some public relations, but I really kind of got pigeonholed into the whole graphic design, photographer, labels, but that was okay. So that happened for about 6 years, I guess. I was basically doing print marketing, and I needed a change. I mean, I was starting to I was in the dollar per hour model. Right. I was trying to get out. I started working with a coach. I came up with a program called Creativity for Cash. And what I wanted to do was teach creatives how to make money, because creatives, we're creative when we get work done and we love working for our clients. But when it comes to really asking for the money and really putting a cap on our time, that's another story. So I joined Toastmasters. I was giving a lot of talks. I did a talk on creativity. A couple days later, I had to talk. I had to speak to the Rotary, the local Rotary, and I'm thinking, they're not going to be interested in print marketing. That's kind of on the way out. I was very into blogging then and content development. I thought, well, I can talk a little bit about content development, but if they're not into that, let me think of something else. So I just went on the internet to see what was hot at that time, and personal branding kept coming up. And it hit me. This has been what I have been doing all along. And so I talked about personal branding to the Rotary, and I was going through a rebrand anyway with Big Eye Media. So I started presenting myself as, hey, I'm doing personal branding. And then when I would say, I'm doing personal branding and content development, and I remember I was at a live event, she says, oh, no, content development is personal branding. So, I mean, I was getting educated along the way too about what personal branding is. But really, everything I learned in PR school, all about your target market, how to reach your target market, messaging, image. It's all personal branding. So it's just natural.
Obviously, and obviously that experience and all your all those things you learned along the way has helped you a lot with personal branding. So let's talk a little bit about personal branding versus other forms of branding, like business branding. What is the difference, and is there a distinction?
I think there is. I think there is, and a lot of times I'll just refer to it as branding, but it really is who. It really depends. It's the same in nature, but it depends on who you're branding. A business is a little bit different because there's a lot more people involved who have to kind of get on board with the same message and represent a company. But when it's just you, and I work with mostly solopreneurs, then you really need to figure out what you stand for. You're not representing somebody else, you're representing yourself, and it has to be authentic to you. And you have to show up consistently. Your message has to be consistent. So there's a lot of overlap in brand and personal branding, but the premise is the same.
So it sounds to me like personal branding is more for individuals who have companies or products or services that they are sharing, selling, representing to the world, and they need to distinguish themselves from other people who are sharing, selling, and representing similar or the same products, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it. That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure it was clear to our audience, and I wanted to welcome Plus Size Events. You'll notice that as we're going, I may interject and invite and welcome some people who join us, because we want people to know, and it also sounds good when it's on the recording. So tell us, let's get right into the Sizzle system. First of all, tell us what it is, and then why is it important?
Okay, the Sizzle system is a 6-step, like you mentioned, Heidi, a 6-step plan to guide entrepreneurs through the branding process. It starts from the inside out. Branding, the most important part of personal branding really is what you stand for, and really kind of, emanating that. So that's where it starts. It moves on to getting clear on your dream client. And then we move into using your story. That's another part of your brand. And then the messaging, visual identity. And some people say that's what sets me apart from other personal branding experts, is I've been actually doing the visual identity for my clients for so long. And then the last step is to establish your expertise, to really get yourself out there, because you can build your brand, figure out what you stand for, what sets you apart from the next person that's doing the same thing, get your messaging down. But unless you're getting out there and getting your message out there and your programs out there and really investing in yourself to do that, your brand is not going to be recognized for what it is or how it should be.
And you know what? I want to go back to the steps and maybe just elaborate a little bit, because I'm putting them in the text area so that people can kind of follow along, and when they read or watch the replay again, they can see those steps clearly and say, "Oh, I've got to listen to this." So let's go back to step 1, what you stand for, and then if you could just outline them a little bit, maybe give us 1 or 2 tips on each one of them, that'd be great.
Okay, so it is an acronym, Sizzle. So step 1 is shine your light. And in shine your light, the first module, we really get clear on core values, what you stand for. And I have a process to really figure out the core values that are important for each of my clients in business and in life, because they're different. So we take the core values that are important in business, and then get very, very clear on the services that they bring, because that's another area that is a little bit muddled sometimes. So you have to really be clear on the value that you bring and the actual service that you're providing. So we take those 2 things and put them together in a unique value proposition statement. And really, that's really forms the basis of all the messaging and what your brand stands for. That's shine your light. So that's really, that goes deep. And then the second step, I identify your dream client. So of course we get, come up with unique buyer persona. I like to call it the dream client. You get very, very clear on who your dream client is, that one person you're going to be speaking to in all your copy. And step 3 is zig when everyone else zags. And that's related that's related to your dream client, in that it's about using your story to build your tribe. Of course, when you have your story, then you can create your about pages, your bios for social media, your boilerplate info, your speaker's bio. So that's really important too, to really get clear on the story that's going to represent your brand, because we all have many, many stories, and we have to pick the one or the two that are going to relate to our clients and to our business. Then step 4 is zero in with mouth-watering marketing messaging. And I kind of play with that a little bit every time I run it, but you get the But that's all about writing marketing copy, sales pages, your home page, all your messaging. 5 is lure them with your look, and that's the piece on visual identity. When you need a logo, why you need a logo. That also includes your business name and your results-based tagline. I consider that a visual element. Your colors, your fonts, everything, your look that is going to resonate with your dream client. And within all that too, I talk a lot about, I really talk about everything. So many things: SEO, social media, how to post on social media, how to set up your LinkedIn bio and your pages and things like that. So there's a lot of other little things that I'm not representing here. But anyway, the last step is elevate your expert status. And that's really finding ways to get in front of your dream client, in front of your tribe. Speaking, media placement, blogging, I cover the gamut really there. Publishing a book, more social media. So that's really about getting in front of the people who need you.
Well, I think that what's important that you're sharing is that there is a process. There are steps. They are very intricate. This is just kind of to give people an idea of what they are. Obviously, in a 45-minute or an hour program, we really can't go into depth on how to do this, because it just wouldn't serve the purpose of the call or the people, because it is, I'm sure each step takes a lot more than 1 hour. I know when I did my branding, I think the hardest thing for me was to figure out who my dream client was. That took me forever. It wasn't like an hour, even a day. I had to go over and over, and I must have changed it 10 times before I really understood who my dream client was. And I went after a lot of different personas to find that. So I think that's a huge step. So people need to understand, but at least that they know the Sizzle system is a process. It will work once they start, implementing the ideas that you share. How do people, so let's talk about how people find out about you. Who are your ideal clients or your target audience, and how do they find out about your products and services?
Well, just to backtrack, you brought up a good point about constantly re-evaluating who your dream client is, because that changes. A lot of times it changes. Yeah. And you'll work with certain people, you'll think they're your dream client, and then it's like, oh no. I think I want this dream client.
Right. Sometimes that dream client turns into a nightmare client.
Absolutely.
I've had a few of those. Well, luckily, I've only had two in the many years. I won't tell you, but it's more than 30 that I've been in business, and only twice that I can recall that had left impressions that I had a really bad experience. For the most part, they've been really dream clients. It's just that my expertise changes, and I have to change clients because I've got to find people who need whatever it is I'm now representing. So would that be a fair assumption when you're also looking at your dream client and how you grow and they grow?
Oh, yes, your brand changes constantly.
Yeah.
But you have to have a starting point.
Yeah.
And you have to know what the branding process is and what goes into it. So anyway, back to your question. My dream client is a woman, a purpose-driven woman, generally over age 45, although if you've heard of the splatter effect, right? That's who I'm speaking to. And then I might get some that are younger, basically between 45 and I would say probably 64. A lot of my clients are switching up their career. Maybe they're getting ready to retire, or they just want to use their experience to go out on their own and build a business through that. A lot of them are rebranding as well. But that's usually why they come to me, is because they have something. It's not about money. It's really about getting their gifts out into the world.
Excellent. Excellent. So how do they find out about you and your programs?
Mostly.
How do you market your products?
Oh gosh. That's a loaded question.
Great question.
I built my first business locally. I mean, we really didn't have all this online marketing back then. So a lot of, I'm still marketing locally. I'm not sure that it's really going over that well, because this is the other thing people need to know. Because I did a big rebrand. I went from Big Eye Media working $1 per hour to the online model, the leverage model. And people that were my clients just didn't get it. And so I really had to step out of my comfort zone as far as marketing myself, because that wasn't working so much anymore. I'm still doing speaking engagements locally, and they're starting to get it a little more. But I just really started learning what I could about online marketing and started marketing myself that way.
Right.
So I do a newsletter. I'm building my list constantly. Social media. I did a telesummit in April, and a lot of Facebook ads, sponsorships.
What has been probably your best marketing strategies so far to date that you can think of in your new business, in your new brand?
Speaking, by far. Yeah.
A lot of people tell me that. I speak a lot too, and I think that you're absolutely right, speaking.
Yeah, as long as you're getting in front of the right audience, because a recent speaking engagement was in front of 70 people. You would think that I would be successful, not my audience. So I learned a big lesson there. So
yeah, but we do that sometimes, not knowing exactly. I ask a lot of questions when people ask me to speak now. And the reason I do is I don't want to waste the time of the audience first, because if I'm not the right person for them, they're not going to get my message. And then second, if it's a program that I'm doing for free, which often is the case when we're promoting our businesses, we're promoting it so that we can, show them what we can do for them, and hopefully, they hire us or they buy a product or a service, whatever. If they're not the right audience for me and I'm not the right person for them, they're not going to buy no matter what I say, and I'm not going to I don't sell. I just never have sold. I figure that if I give enough good information, people are going to buy if that's something they need. So obviously knowing your market is so important. How do you distinguish your who your audience should be when you get these invitations to speak. Because you know what I found? A lot of times these organizations will tell you one thing, and then when you show up, it's a totally different thing. I had a group that asked me to speak, and they said, oh, we usually have 30 to 40 people. And there were 8 people in the room. By the way, 5 of those 8 people bought. So it was the right audience. It was just not represented well.
Yeah.
So I sold more than half the room, and I was really thrilled because sometimes you can speak to 40 people and only 2 buy.
Yeah.
So,
so that happened to me 2 times, same group, but in different parts of the county. Same organization, I should say. 4 people showed up one time, but one of those people became my clients. And then the next time, it was, a couple years later, 4 people showed up. And of course, they always say, well, we expect 12 to 15. And then, you're disappointed because
whenever I hear the word expect, I know it's just not going to happen. Now, if they say expect 150 show up, that's okay.
Yeah.
I prefer small groups to begin with. I find small groups tend to be more, I don't know about your experience, but I find the groups of 20 to 25 seems to be my ideal, the sweet spot for me when I'm giving a program. More interaction, I think.
Yeah. Around in my neighborhood, 12 is good.
Okay.
12. But this particular group that I spoke to, it was a friend of mine who called me and asked me to speak. And she said, it's a large networking organization. There's about 50 members. And I thought, great. And I just assumed because, she's my target audience, that she's one of my dream clients, that it would be more of her, but it wasn't. It was, a room filled with men, small business owners who really, I think they got something out of my presentation, but I don't think they would hire me. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, you have to know who the action takers are. I think that's really important. So speaking has been so what was your first big success in business?
Oh, gee. That's really, I don't know that I've had any big successes that I can think of. I think probably as far as the coaching goes, I would say, and it wasn't a big success, but I just kind of jumped in with the Sizzle system and ran a group program.
Excellent.
And I had 4 people join, which is not a lot, but nobody knew about the Sizzle system. So to me, I think that took nerve.
If you have $100,000 system and you only sell 1, I'm okay with that. Even if it's a 5,000 or 1,000, because you could work all day selling $20 books, and it would take you a lot of books to make that kind of profit. So, I think that it's not a matter of the number; it's how you price it, how you value it, etc. I love what you said about the leverage model. So I wrote that the leverage model takes you out of the time equation. It emphasizes the value equation. I think that that's what a lot of us who've probably been in business a while, seasoned professionals, I like to say, have learned. Because we all have the same amount of time, and just I don't do anything by time anymore. I mean, I know how long something's going to take me, and if I price it at an hour and it takes me 15 minutes, great. But I'm not going to price it at an hourly rate anymore. I just have to, because you never know. And it's not, and I think it's more fair to the client in the long run, because sometimes things do take longer than you expect. And how do you go back to a person and say, I told you it would only be an hour, but it took me 2.5 hours to fix that problem, And that's happened to me. Not very often. I'm pretty good about guesstimating, but occasionally I think that I get it wrong. Let's talk about running a business. What's a typical day like for you, Carol Ann?
Actually, Heidi, I have to say I love my life. A typical day is I get up between 6 and 7. I spend, I would say, between an hour or two. I start my day meditating. In meditation, and then I journal and read and do my affirmations and really just focus on getting my head together and thinking about what I have to do that day. Then I go out and exercise. I'll go to hot yoga or go walk in the park or something like that. Come home, shower. And in between there, I'm checking email. So if there's something urgent, I take care of it. But basically the first 4 hours of my day is really just getting myself together and doing what I want to do. And then I really do sit down. I have an assistant who comes in 3 days a week, but I really do focus for a good, I would say 4 to 6 hours every day on just marketing or, working with my clients or whatever it is I have to do that day.
That's perfect. And you know what? I think that the common thread for almost every successful woman I have interviewed is the exercise, the meditation, or at least finding a little quiet time to reflect, time to think, time to process, taking care of you. And I think that that's an important message, especially for women who may not be at that place in their business or in their lives at this time in their life. I think that when I was in my 30s, that if you said to me, find 10 minutes to meditate, I would say, you're crazy. I've got 3 small children. There's no way. But you know what? The more I do that, the more I find that I'm more present with everything else. So it's just so important, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing I do is, I tend to stop, try to, tear myself away from my computer around 6 o'clock, by 6 o'clock. And then by 8 o'clock, I'm sitting in front of the TV. And that's my time to spend with my honey. And, I don't necessarily watch TV, but it's, the baseball game's on. And what I do is, that's really where I write. That's where I get my inspiration. I don't know. It just happens then. And so I take a lot of notes and I get my ideas for programs or whatever it is I want to do next. And I just write it down. And then the next day, it's kind of already in my head. It's already created. So I just have to actually, make it real, make it tangible. But I guess that's part of the creative process. And when I was talking about with, creatives who can work around the clock and
right.
Get paid for it.
and you know what? There's no perfect time. For everybody's time is different. I happen to get these spurts. I need to take a break in the middle of the day for an hour or two. And usually it's to go for a swim or a walk around the neighborhood or just sitting and talking to my dog, because my husband works during the day. And I just love that time that I can just get away from my computer. I really need to and I do it in the middle of the day a lot, but everybody's different. And then at night I get this sudden burst of energy around 8 o'clock after dinner is over with. And my husband and I have had our chance to catch up on the day and everything. And if he's watching a sports show or something, he'll go into his room or his office and watch it. And then I'll watch nonsense TV, I call it, but I love it because it kind of sits in the background and I actually can think when it's on. During the day, there's not a sound in my house other than the dog occasionally barking. I like it totally quiet during the day, but in the evening, I like that company, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting, but everyone.
Yeah, it's very quiet during the day. I don't play music generally.
Me either. Sometimes I'll listen to a teleseminar in the background or a video because I like that. Because sometimes if I'm not I can't do it when I'm creating. I can only do it when I'm doing mundane type tasks that don't interfere with my creative process. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced early in business, because I'm sure you had 1 or 2.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. The whole reason I rebranded is because working at that $1 per hour model, I started feeling like a monkey that, people weren't valuing my time, my gifts, my talent. And I was really feeling burned out. And what happened there is, Heidi, I never knew this whole world of coaches existed.
Right.
And I crashed an eWomen's Network meeting and I saw this woman and she just spoke to me and I'm like, whoa, that is me. I knew her. But that grew out of a challenge. I really was in a place where I hit that financial ceiling, dollar per hour. I'm only going to make so much. And I was really stuck. So I would say that was a challenge. And just the way my clients were starting to make me feel. And I have to say that they were men. Nothing against men, but when it comes to design, women love me and say, "Oh, Carol Ann, you're wonderful, and I love what you did for me." Men are a different animal. It was always like very, very controlling, and I didn't like that because I just don't like to be controlled. So, so I was having a lot of those instances around that time, and I guess it was kind of inevitable that I was going to have to really find another way of doing things. And so when I met my coach, she talked about leveraging, and that's how that all started. And then the challenges along the way are, I think the biggest challenge of the online model is really getting known.
Yeah.
And building the know, like, and trust factor. And right now, that's really what my focus is on, building my list, building my community. And I'm sure it will get better, but I feel that to engage people, getting people to engage isn't that easy either. So that's what I think my biggest challenge is right now. Of course, I've had other challenges where I gave a webinar and nobody could get on, or nobody could right. Those kinds of challenges too, which I kind of just brush those off as like. So yeah, I think the biggest challenge I would have to say is really, really just getting people to know you. And it's fine face to face. I have no problem with speaking, but I find that online is just takes a lot longer.
It does. It does. And you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to stick to it. I think that's the other thing. People tend to go after the next shiny object. I know that when Snapchat and Instagram came about, I was so entrenched in Twitter and in LinkedIn. I decided, you know what? I'm going to stick where I know that I'm doing really well. I get a lot of referrals through LinkedIn especially, and I sell a lot of my products through Twitter. And if I deviate from the model that's working to go after a shiny new object, then I lose the momentum I have built already. Because I think what happens is that we do that because it is that shiny object and syndrome. I know because I've done it over and over and over again. But momentum is hard to regain once you lose it. I did that because I stayed away from Twitter for 6 months. I was just so burned out. And I think at the time I had like 18,000 followers, and I was on it all the time. I was on it for myself. I was on it for my clients. I hadn't learned how to really leverage my time on it, but I had been selling a lot. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to spend a lot of time here, but everything else suffered. So I took a few months off, and it took me so long to rebuild my position on Twitter, even though I had the followers, because I had not posted anything. There was a few auto posts that went every time I did a blog, but I wasn't present. I wasn't going on and building or anything. So I think that you have to figure out which ones are good, which ones work for you. Get a presence on every one of them if you feel the need. Because you never know if you're going to want to take advantage of them. I went on Google Plus and just, decided to set up an account, but I didn't do anything with it for a couple of years. That was a good decision because now I'm using it. Not as effectively as the others, but so what advice do you have for people? Because you're all obviously in a similar situation. How do you, and probably experiencing similar things, how do you use it? What do you think is the best way what has been the best for you?
I like Facebook.
There's a question in there.
I like Facebook. I feel most comfortable with Facebook. Twitter I like, but I just don't even think to tweet my stuff out for some reason. I'm constantly on Facebook in groups. I have a Facebook group now, so I try to spend a lot of time there. I know Instagram is great, but to me it's one more thing.
Yeah.
And there are so many moving parts to a business that you really can't do everything. So I stick with Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and I love to blog.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Well, we
yeah.
have a lot of things in common, Carol Ann. Speaking of the internet, do you have a favorite smartphone app or a favorite online tool that you'd like to share with us?
I would say I love Aweber. I love email marketing. So Aweber is great because I think it's professional without having to, go to the next, you know what I'm talking about, Infusionsoft or Entreport. And I think you really need to be at a certain place before you go there. I see a lot of people biting off more than they can chew as far as that goes. And that's why I'm staying with Aweber just for a little bit longer. But I really love it. I love the customer support, but I really do love email marketing now. I mean, it was so hard for me to put myself out there at first when I started 3 years ago. But I just send out emails all the time now. And
Aweber is wonderful. It's my favorite too. One of my favorites too. And I've been on it. It was before Constant Contact kind of took a foothold and people started, everywhere you heard was Constant Contact. Then it was Eye Contact. Then it was, like you said, Entreport, and what are some of the others? I don't even know. But you know what? I'm so used to it. It's easy for me. It's not an easy one to learn either. I think it takes
not at all.
I don't even recommend it to my clients until I know they're ready for it, because it's so overwhelming that they give up and don't do the work, So there are easier systems like MailChimp and MailJet out there, but they're not as robust, and they won't, in the long run, you end up having to go to something more. And then what happens is these great salespeople online sell you the things that you're not ready for, like you said. Entreport is a huge system, and it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So
same with Infusionsoft. I thought I was going to move to Infusionsoft last year, and I just said, no, I'm really not ready for it. I'm going to stay with Aweber. The other thing I like is Canva.
Oh, me too.
And I'm a designer, but Canva is great because it's so easy.
Well, if you have a good image, you can do almost anything with it, right?
Yeah.
Canva. I agree. Canva's wonderful. So what books are you currently reading or would recommend?
Okay. I have one here. I love this book. I saw it in Target. I was buying a gift for somebody, and it just called to me. You are a badass.
I love it.
How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Cicero. And she's hilarious. It's about spirituality. She's a coach, actually, but she tells her story, and a lot about meditation and stuff like that. I never heard of her before.
No, I haven't either. And I love getting new books to read and new books to recommend to my own audience. So I'm definitely that'll definitely be on our list this month to read. So You Are a Badass by Jen Cicero.
Yes, the New York Times bestseller.
Yes, that's fabulous. Great book. What one thing would you like to share with our audience that maybe we didn't discuss, Carol?
Oh, okay. So one of the things that the Sizzle system is my unique branded system. One of the things that, as a coach, your system is part of your brand. So that is part of the branding process too. Your signature talk, all those things are part of your brand. I started to change things up a little bit. The Sizzle system still is what it is. Every time I run it, though, I update it. Things change, trends change. But what I noticed with my clients is that, because I work one-on-one too, is that I would brand them. They would come to me for branding, and then we would go through that process. They'd have their brand, they'd have their business, and then they would stop. I don't know, something was stopping them. They wouldn't get out there. They wouldn't ask for the money. They didn't find, I guess, it was a worth thing. So I did some money mindset training, and that's what I've been focusing on a little bit more. So I think that really what I would like to leave the audience with is that everything is mindset, and you really do need to get over your own stuff. And if I can get out there, because this is the other thing why I rebranded. I felt like I was the best kept secret. And I really was holding myself back. And the Sizzle system came out of my playing small. And so I really do want to help every woman out there get out there and really show her stuff and really stand in her power and sizzle. And a lot of that is you really just have to develop the mindset for that and really know that, you know, running a business is about making money. You can't have a business unless you ask for the money, or else you just have a hobby. So get serious.
Get serious. I love that. So I paraphrase your quote, because I like to share a great quote that my guests say. So everything is mindset. You really need to get over your own stuff and stand in your power and sizzle. Is that succinct enough? Okay, that's now your quote by Carol Ann DeSimine. And Carol Ann, I just think you're amazing. What's next for you?
What's next for me? Oh, okay, Heidi, I have something coming up.
Yes, tell us.
Yes. It's called the Big, Bold, Brilliant Brand Challenge. And it's a 5-day free challenge. I'm going to start promoting it today, I think, as long as my email's ready. And it's going to be primarily about writing your brand story. And to get to that, you have to really figure out what you stand for, your dream client. So there are a few steps before you get there. So it's really going to be a lot of fun, I think. So that's what's coming up next. I'm going to be running the Sizzle system in the fall again. I hope to do I also have a workshop that I do locally. I hope to get that out there again. And I hope to do my summit again in the spring. So
you got a lot going on. You did.
I have a lot going on.
So again, the Big, Bold, Brilliant Brand Challenge. How do we find out more about that and participate?
Okay. So the sales page is personalbranding.thesizzlesystem.com/brand challenge. But even if your listeners go to thesizzlesystem.com and subscribe for download my manifesto, you'll get on my list, and then you'll find out the information through emails. But you can go directly to the sales page too.
That was my next question. How can we get in contact with you? So I'm putting both of those down here for you. But any other ways, like Facebook, Twitter? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
I would say, get on my list, thesizzlesystem.com. However, connect with me on Facebook, The Sizzle System.
I went to your page and I clicked on all your social links and connected with you in each of those places. And I think that's what I do with all my guests. So I think that's an important thing for people to know. And another little tip for people who don't have that on theirs, they should have it very visible on every page of your website, how we can connect with you virtually as well as in person, because sometimes people have to look. I've had a couple of guests where I've had to go, and it wasn't even on the contact us page. It was on the about or something else. And it was the only place I could find their social media links. And I was thinking, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe they don't want to be found.
And that's part of your branding.
Yes, it is. Maybe they don't want to be.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I also have a Facebook group, The Sizzle to Abundance. It's connected to my summit, the Sizzle to Abundance World Summit. But it's facebook.com/groups/sizzle to abundance. And that's where ultimately I'm going to be holding my challenge.
Excellent. So is that open to the public, your group?
No, but just ask to join and I'll.
But I'm saying we can ask to join. It's not a private group or a secret group or anything like that.
No, it's not Facebook. No.
I have
everyone's welcome. You just have to, you do have to ask.
Okay,
So.
fabulous. Wonderful. Wow. Well, we have been talking with Carol DeSimine, and I am just thrilled. So many great nuggets today, Carol Ann. Thank you so much for sharing about the Sizzle system, what personal branding is, about your big, bold, brilliant brand challenge, and all of the other things that will help each of our listeners be better at branding themselves and maybe tweak those things we're not exactly sure of. Carol Ann, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Heidi. It was a pleasure.
You're the best. My name again is Heidi Richards Mooney. This has been the EntreprenHer Show. Be sure and tune in. We're on twice a week, sometimes more, depending on how many guests we are fortunate enough to have. And you can go to EntreprenHers.com to get the upcoming schedule, as well as going to Women in E-commerce, WECAI.org, and check us out. Again, thank you very much, Carol Ann, and thank you to everyone who joined us today and all of those listening to the replay. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.